What's up, everybody? I'm Peter Dewey, and here we're going to be talking about the NBA, how to bet on it, and how to find the best value in player props, money lines, spreads, and totals. We're going to take you through all you need to know to make sure you're placing the best bets for the rest of the season and into this year's playoffs. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is how to bet on a money line, which is who is going to win a particular game. In this instance, we are going to use Game 6 of the NBA Finals last year between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns. So first, let's start with the Bucks, who were the favorite in this game. They were at home, and they were minus 185 on the money line. So what does that mean? That means you need to risk $185 in order to profit 100 if the Bucks win the game. Conversely, if you were going to bet on the Suns, who were the underdogs in this game at plus 165 odds, you would need to bet $100 to profit 165 if the Suns ended up winning the game. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to bet a spread in the NBA. Every single NBA game is going to have a point spread for it. Basically what this is it's a line that odds makers set to make the game even. So in Game 6 of the Finals last year, the Suns were 4.5-point underdogs against the Milwaukee Bucks. Essentially, this means odds makers think the Bucks are 4.5 points better than the Phoenix Suns. So the Suns are able to give them points so you can still win a spread bet on the Suns even if they lose the game, unlike a money line. So in this instance, if you bet on the Suns, you would need them to either lose by 4 or fewer points or end up winning the game outright. That way you would win your bet on the spread. On the other side, if the Bucks win the game by 5 or more points, then you would win your bet on the spread for the Bucks. When betting a spread in the NBA, you are most likely going to see minus 110 odds on either side of the spread, whether it's for the underdog or the favorite. What this means is you need to risk $110 in order to profit 100 for that team to cover the spread. Sometimes this will change depending upon the handle the sportsbook has or if the line has moved since it opened, but most of the time you will see minus 110 odds, which means bet 110, profit 100 on both sides of the spread. Let's say you don't have a clear pick on a side in the game. Maybe you don't like the spread. Maybe you don't think anyone's a lock to win. Don't worry, you can always bet on the total. The total is a bet on the number of combined points between two teams in a game. So let's go back to our Game 6 example between the Suns and the Bucks, where the total was set at 221 points. In this case, if you bet the over on the 221, you would need the Bucks and the Suns to combine for 222 or more points to hit that bet. On the other side, if you bet the under, 220 or fewer points would need to be scored in the game for you to hit that bet. If they hit exactly 221, the bet is a push, which means your original bet will be returned to you. In Game 6, the Bucks ended up winning 105-98, so bettors who took the under cashed in big time. Let's say you aren't sure about picking a side in the game, whether it's a spread, money line, or total. You can bet on a player prop, which is my personal favorite way to bet on the NBA. But the concept is very similar to betting on a total. Let's go to an example. If Devin Booker, the Suns guard, has a points prop at 25.5, he needs to score 26 or more points for bettors who took the over to cash and 25 or fewer points for bettors who took the under to cash. Player props are not as simple as a spread. Minus 110 odds can be put on a player prop, but sometimes they will vary. They could be minus 120 or plus 100. Essentially, if it's minus odds, you need to risk that amount in order to profit $100. If it is plus odds, if you bet $100, you will profit the amount, say plus 165, you will profit $165. Player props are offered for just about anything you can think of in a basketball game, between points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers, steals, blocks, and combinations of those stats as well. They are offered for all players on either team, and you can get great value when finding the right players to bet on. So how do I personally bet on the NBA? I'm going to give you guys a few tips and tricks that I love to look at when I place my NBA bets. First off, there's a few statistics that I love to look at when betting on the NBA. It's important to see where a team ranks in offensive and defensive rating this season, which is a measure of how many points a team scores and allows per 100 possessions. Why is this important? It puts all of the teams onto a level playing field, as some teams play at a faster pace than others, and others play obviously at a slower pace. Offensive and defensive rating help measure a team's efficiency that season, and I usually look to their season-long number as well as how they fared over the last 10 games to understand their current form. Some teams will have much better numbers in their last 10 games if they're on a hot streak, or much worse if they're on a cold streak. It helps you take the encompass of the entire season. Another important factor to look at, especially when betting totals, is pace. Pace is important because faster paced teams obviously usually score more points, but at the same time, they may have a low offensive rating if they aren't as efficient. Slower paced teams with high offensive ratings are the most efficient teams because they're making the most of all of their possessions. This matters when you are betting a total because if you want to find a team to hit the over, having a fast-paced team with a lot of possessions gives you more opportunities for points. So all these numbers will help you bet spreads, totals, and money lines, but it's super important to actually watch as many NBA games as you can. Watching teams, seeing how they execute down the stretch, seeing how they play in certain arenas, home or away, and how they play against certain opponents is crucial when understanding how you want to bet on the NBA. So I mentioned that betting on player props is my favorite way to bet on the NBA, and there's a few factors that you have to take into account when betting on player props. The number one thing I look at is volume and opportunity. What does this mean? If you're betting on a player to score 15 points in a game, but they only average 8 shots in a game, it's going to be much harder for them to reach 15 points than a player who says takes 12 shots in a game. Obviously, it's important to look at field goal percentage, quality of the shots, and all that, but you want a player that has a high usage rating, that has a lot of opportunities, touches the ball a lot, and plays a key role in the offense when betting, especially points props. But it goes for rebounds props in terms of minutes, amount of times players get it on a rebound, their rebound percentage. All these numbers go into you need opportunity to hit player props. It's also important to look at the matchup. Playing a good or bad defense could depend on how a player fares in that game. It's not a perfect strategy, but making sure that you find players that will have the opportunity to reach the number that you're looking for is extremely important when betting on player props. Think you have enough knowledge now to bet on the NBA? Using places like NBA.com for stats are a great way to get started, but at BetSided, we have you covered with predictions, analysis, and more to help you become a successful NBA bettor. Plus, if you have any more questions, reach out to us in the comments below, like, subscribe, and check us out as well on fansided.com/BetSided.